Are you in a technical role and repeatedly find yourself pushing up against the same frustratingly inefficient processes over and over? In this video, I'm going to go over 3 steps to work to automate routine processes and reduce friction for your job. When I first started working, many of the processes I dealt with on a daily basis were frustratingly inefficient, and no one would listen to me as the new guy. I was always told, "We always do it that way." Which, after about the 10th time I heard that phrase, it now makes me cringe and I want to throw up anytime I hear it uttered. Just because we always do it this way does not mean that this way is good. If I was just starting out as an engineer or a similar technical role today, I would have handled this much differently than I did. I would have started to track the time spent on various parts of the process and really try to understand the sticking points to each part of the process. Essentially doing a value stream map type activity on whatever process you're looking to automate. Trying to understand all the nuance, who's involved, at what steps, who owns the process, and those are the people that can help you get changes approved when you want to actually change the process, and what it would take in terms of formality, engineering change proposals, that type of thing, to change the process. This step could and should take numerous iterations of the process so you can really see all the sticking points and inefficiencies. I had one major process that I fought in this way for several years to a variety of successes. It took me dozens of iterations through the process to truly understand what was or wasn't going on and why. Lots of the process didn't make sense up front, and it wasn't until several months in and the team did a multi-day value stream map that we could really see the whole picture. It hopefully doesn't take this extreme a situation for you to understand your frustrating process, but since it took so long for me to understand mine, I already had new improvements in hand and I was ready to propose with the correct stakeholders in the room at the value stream map meeting. This leads to my next point, thinking of ways to automate your process. My particular process consisted of a huge amount of very cumbersome Excel macros with several rounds of manual intervention required and multiple people duplicating the same procedure as a verification that the work was done correctly. I took it upon myself at this point to dig into the Excel macros, which were Visual Basic, code, and to consolidate the tools and make them more user-friendly. I didn't know any Visual Basic when I started working on this, but now I have spent enough time in Excel and VB that I can basically do Excel with just keyboard shortcuts. I don't need a mouse. If the cable gets cut, it's fine. Alt F11, anyone? Now this comes into one of those things where you have to kind of learn what your domain or what's allowed at your job. I'm bringing up Excel macros. I can write Excel macros, but there's a lot of places where Excel macros are restricted, and for good reason in most cases, because Excel macros can do some damage to your machine if you don't know what you're doing. So you need to pay attention to what is allowed, and you need to take my particular example with a little bit of a grain of salt. So back to my story. For this process, we had a whole bunch of different email distributions for a whole bunch of different customers, all of which went out of date so quickly it was a constant pain for us, and the lists were very frequently bugged on the front end of the process to see if the distro was still right. This particular issue was very quickly rectified by a shared email inbox for the team, so when people came in or left the team, it was very easy to just get them on that email inbox, and this is something that, last I checked, is still being used today, almost a decade later. Knowing when to automate things and when to just knock out the work is a very important skill. You don't want to expend a huge amount of calories on something that you won't be doing routinely. Since we did a value stream map and we had all the stakeholders and people necessary to approve the process in the room, it was an easy sell to sell my changes to the process. This was because I had already been tracking how much time had been saved versus the person using the old tools to validate my work with the same results. This gets into the third step for automating processes, which is iterating on your process. So you need to iterate on your process and also ensure that you're getting enough credit for the improved efficiency without coming off as that guy. This again is something you need to start prioritizing your automation efforts on with a process that's going to have a bigger impact. Even though As an engineer, sometimes you don't want to go for the thing that's going to be the most impactful to the larger organization. You want to get the most impact for yourself. And this is where sometimes you kind of need to put that stuff on a list and get to it when you get to it. So the larger organizational impact stuff will get you a lot more notice when things go well. There's no need to come off as arrogant when trying to bring up automation efforts or ideas. Let the ideas or results speak for themselves. If you find yourself being undercut or someone else trying to take credit for your work, see that as an opportunity to increase your broadcasting to a larger group within your organization, to the point where they can't take credit for your work. Once you start gathering data or reps from your new process, iterate and make it even better going into the future. I tend to have a couple spreadsheets with metrics and improvement ideas that are delineated by difficulty or cost and impact or improvement to the process, so you can refer to them in the future. If you do things correctly and they go well, you shouldn't have to revisit process improvements very often, so leaving yourself some breadcrumbs can save you lots of time down the track. We just went over 3 easy steps to start systemizing your engineering role. If you enjoyed any of this content and you're interested in becoming a higher performing engineer, join my social engineer network and learn how to face the engineer's trilemma head on.